Okay, hi guys, good morning. This is our history now. Um, in case you forgot, we were talking about before this new chapter that we're studying into. We were talking about the progress that America was doing, and we talked about that when progress comes, there also comes problems with it. So because of all the problems that were happening, that's why the progressive movement happened. So let's start with the progressive movement. So what caused the progressive movement? Okay. So what was the cost of it? So if you see here, number one, economic abuse. Of course, when we talked about economy, that's about money, money, money. So there were a lot of businesses at that time that were monopolizing the business. So if you weren't as wealthy, then you wouldn't be able to have your own business because there was a lot of monopoly that was going on. Big businesses kind of ate up the little businesses that wanted to start. So that was one of the reasons why there were people saying, "No, this monopoly should not happen. We need to do something to get rid of it." So that was one of the reasons why the progressive movement started. So another reason, aside from all the monopolies and all that stuff, another reason was political corruption. So there was a lot of corruption going on at that time in the government. So the politicians, if you were in charge of like a state or something, you would take money from people. You would take bribes. Remember machines? The people that run the city, they would abuse their power, and therefore they would. I'll just give you an example. So, for example, I got arrested for something, okay, and then I had money, and I would talk to the politician and say, "Hey, I'll give you this XYZ amount of money, but just can you just make sure, please, that you will not put me in prison?" So there was a lot of political corruption during this time. So another thing that caused the progressive movement was social injustice. So remember, there was child labor going on. The living conditions of the poor were so bad. The tenements, the row houses, there was just so much injustice going on at that time, and then the progressives wanted equality for everybody. So if and there's nothing wrong with that. They wanted to solve these problems. So again, the cost of the progressive movement was because of money. There were a lot of businesses that were monopolizing businesses. So again, little people or people that just wanted to have their own business could not succeed because of all these businesses. So if you remember the big names that we studied, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Carnegie, so they had big monopolies during at that time. So again, political corruption. We talked about that, and social injustice. So all the progressives wanted to fix this. So remember, we had a conversation about the progressives wanted to fix these problems by putting in more laws, putting in all their solutions to all these programs that they could do. So because we're Christians, or we believe what God says, the human heart cannot be fixed by programs that the government gives. So we know that the human heart can really only change if the Lord changes it. So the progressives didn't see that man by nature, we're greedy, man by nature, we're sinful. So they said, you know what, the way we're gonna solve this is put more problems. I mean, put more solutions that the government can give. So these were the progressives. They thought they could fix the human heart by just adding more laws. Okay, so um, let me hold on. Okay, so what were the goals of these progressives? Okay, so what did they want? So now they're wanting to fix these problems, and now these were the goals that they had. Okay, so the first goal that they had was to guarantee economic opportunity. So I know that sounds really big, but that just means that they wanted little people to have a chance to make money. Okay, so that was one of their goals. So they wanted to make sure that Mr. Smith could somehow have a successful business, against Carnegie, for example, or Rockefeller. Okay, so not that he would become as rich as him, but at least he will be given the opportunity to start a business. So they also wanted to give power back to the people. Remember, we talked about the populist. Okay, so a populist, somehow, um, they were just ordinary people. Okay, they were farmers. They weren't this big political people. They were just, the people. And they also wanted more people voting. So that was, women, what they wanted, that women could vote. So these were their goals. So first was everybody had the chance to make money. Then the political power would be given back to the people, and that more people would be voting, including women. Okay. And again, they wanted to get rid of social injustice. So basically, they just wanted everybody to be equal, men, women, whatever gender you're at, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they wanted, again, to use all these government laws. Okay. So, okay, so who were the progressives? Okay, who were these people that were considered progressive leaders? So the first leader we talked about in class a little bit, were the muckrakers or the muckrakers. So these muckrakers, as we talked about, were individuals or people who wanted to expose sin and corruption during this whole era, or during era is just another time for it's just another word for like time period. So the muckrakers, there was a lot of them, and the examples of these muckrakers, we talked about Nellie Bly in class. Her real name is Elizabeth Cochran. And do you remember, she was pretending to be insane to go to expose the travesty, or to expose the really bad conditions in the asylums. So she pretended to be crazy, so that she could go in there and expose it. Okay, so these were an Ida Tardell, The History of the Standard Oil Company. She wrote a book that exposed the monopoly of the Rockefellers. I think it was the Rockefellers. I'm going to check on that, but I don't want to erase my recording. Okay, and another guy, The Shame of the Cities, was written by Lincoln Steffens, and he exposed so much corruption that was going on in New York. Like the policemen over there were so corrupt. So basically, he was talking about the corruption that was happening in New York. And Upton Sinclair wrote a book, or like a little, I don't know, pamphlet or something, called The Jungle. So he exposed the really bad conditions of how meat was prepared to be sold. So he exposed that, they were dousing it with chemicals, and they weren't very clean about going about it. So he that was one of the things that he exposed during that time. And obviously, we talked about Nellie Bly or Elizabeth Cochran in class. So the muckrakers or the muckrakers, depending on how you want to say it, were one of the progressive leaders. So they were the ones who really wanted all these change to happen that we were talking about. Okay, so we're gonna end there, and then we're gonna continue. But what I want you to do is going to be written on your classwork. But this is our little class for today. Okay? So if you have any questions, please just email me. Let me know about something that you want to know more. And I'm also going to put a link there for you to listen to. It's kind of fun. It's Mr. Bats, which I really enjoy him. All right. So we're going to keep going and just make sure that you read the instructions that I have for you in classwork. Bye, guys.